And the offensive line was just shaky the whole year, man. That was the weakness this year, and it didn't bite us until the Super Bowl, and it bit us in a huge way. And Patrick didn't play well. I mean, he didn't play well even with the couple of chances he did get. He threw some bad balls. You got, receivers missing catches. I have no idea what Hopkins did on that one catch, but that one drop, or didn't even put his hands out. The Travis Kelce couple of drops. All that is minor. The offensive line played terrible. Patrick didn't play well, and the coaches didn't have any and maybe you don't have any adjustments. Oh, what's going on? What's going on? Mustard. And listen, the game, it came and went. We saw it. I'm a huge Chiefs fan, and everyone saw the game, and a lot of people say it's a boring game and stuff like that, and viewership dropped during the game, and I think that's why it's kind of out of the news cycle. But I will say, as a Chiefs fan, how I see it and perceive it is funny because the Green Bay Packers, Aaron Rodgers, when they went to the Super Bowl, they had that strong team.
Yeah.
They was like, yeah, we're going to be back. Dan Marino, Miami Dolphins, we're going to be back. You know what I mean? And you got all of these different teams throughout history, young teams who get in, and you have a star quarterback who's also young, and you feel like, yeah, we're going to be back, and they never did get back. And how I look at this game is like, we're going to be back, but it's not. I don't feel like I want to be disassociated with those fan bases and those situations, those teams, because we've actually been there 4 out of the last 5 years. So it's a difference, and our quarterback is just not entering his prime. You know what I mean? So I do feel like we're in a different situation, but I do feel like we'll still be back. I mean, I feel like we still dominated the AFC. You know what I mean? And there are things that needs to be done, like offensive line and et cetera, et cetera. But what happened in that game was not on the bingo list of things I thought was going to happen in that game. Us getting dominated and manhandled like that. But we patched the offensive line the entire season. We moved our only all-pro offensive lineman out to left tackle, which is the most important position. And he kind of held us over for 6 weeks, and that was just, patching the tire instead of buying a new tire. That's what we did, and that means now at his position at left guard is a more inexperienced person, and the offensive line was just shaky the whole year, man. That was the weakness this year, and it didn't bite us until the Super Bowl, and it bit us in a huge way. And Patrick didn't play well. I mean, he didn't play well even with the couple of chances he did get. He threw some bad balls. You got, receivers missing catches. I have no idea what Hopkins did on that one catch, but that one drop, or didn't even put his hands out. The Travis Kelce couple of drops. All that is minor. The offensive line played terrible. Patrick didn't play well, and the coaches didn't have any and maybe you don't have any adjustments. A guy told me this morning at the gym, shout out to Butter. He told me, he's like, I would have put Tony back at guard. You had to change something up. I'm like, that doesn't really happen in football. He's been holding it down for 6 weeks. You're not gonna go into the Super Bowl and move him back to left guard because he's struggling at left tackle. I mean, I don't know. I don't think that's the adjustment.
Yeah, no, I mean, an adjustment has to be made to fix a clear problem.
Mm-hmm.
An adjustment can be made to change the dynamics of how the game is being played. But you don't just make adjustments to adjust.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have an objective. Now, the main problem, I mean, a multitude of problems. This was like an all systems failure. I personally felt like I was watching an FSU game this year, where you literally suck in every metric of football. And, the line play was bad. But again, Philadelphia did not blitz. They didn't have to blitz to create consistent pressure, which is insane in football, really. So 4 guys were able to just continuously disrupt the Chiefs, take away the run, forced them into passing. And then, Mahomes had a couple bad throws, 2 really bad picks, a pick 6 and a pick that set the Eagles up at the 10-yard line. And then the drops were fucking terrible. And they were untimely. And watching,
and you mentioned the penalties, and you mentioned that before.
Now, defensively, it was predominantly about penalties early. If you remember the very first scoring drive that Philadelphia had, there was a 3rd down that was incomplete, that they were offsides. Now you go from receiving a punt to extending a drive, which turns into a touchdown. And there was another penalty on the second possession that kept the drive alive that turned into a 10-0 game. And then you get into like the picks and the points that came off of the picks. And so the Chiefs, what they did so well all year, it was reminiscent of what the Jordan Bulls did during the second three-peat. They were great at not playing well. And what I mean by that is there were plenty of segments of play over the course of the year when the Chiefs didn't move the ball real fluidly, that segments of games where they maybe gave up some passing or some rushing. But they always kept in contact with the game. They never let it get 2-3 score game. And so they could still play, and you still had that factor when you got into the fourth quarter.
Within striking distance.
You're within striking distance, and there's almost a gravity that Pat has in those situations that he's going to find a way. And the Chiefs, when you get to that, they believe it, and the other team believes it too. And the way this game unfolded with the compounding of errors, they lost touch with this game before halftime. And the Hopkins thing was such a killer because, again, you're looking at this thing. I think it was it 17-0?
At that time, yeah.
And you're like, okay, if we drive down here, and you're in the closing segments of the half, if we drive down here, get a score, we get the ball back, we could be 17-14 in the early third quarter or 17-10, one-score game. This is who we are. And he drops that ball. They get no points out of that. It gets worse because they give up points. I mean, even if he catches that ball, and it was going to be a sizable gain, even if they got down there and missed a field goal,
oh yeah,
you're still at 17. You're not at 24.
Yeah.
That's massive. And every time you had to make a play, even at 24, you're like, all right, you get the ball, go score. No. 3 and out, whatever, maybe a shit first down and then punt. Every time you had a chance to do something, you literally shit the bed.
No, for sure. And I see Champion here saying that the defense played, fairly well or good enough. And I, to a degree, I do agree with that to a certain degree. I aside from the penalties, which is crazy, it's kind of tough to say. But aside from the penalties, I think they held up well. Of course, they held Saquon in check. And doing that, you're going to give up a couple of plays in the passing game.
Well, you look again. They scored 40 points.
Yeah.
You had a pick 6, which is 7. Mm-hmm. You had another pick that was inside basically the 10-yard line.
Yeah.
So you give up points there. And then, again, where the defense failed itself was on those situations where they didn't get off the field. They probably had 3 of those where you could have gotten off the field. The rest of it, though, was they weren't getting any help from the offense as far as even just like
extending
time of
drives
and shortening the game that way until very late in the game when they finally kind of got some things going. So the defense, when your offense isn't giving you anything, there's a limited shelf life where you can kind of compete, deal with, fight off some bad field position or whatever. But at some point, you need to catch a break.
Yeah.
You need the offense to chip in and do something, whether it's a long drive that gets you a break or just scoring some points any way they come that kind of, pump some life into it. And just like at every turn, it just went downhill for them.
No, for sure. And then you also got Kobe saying it wasn't nothing but a little bit of straightening. Just one ass whooping, they'll be all right. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of how I look at it too. Hopefully they'll come in next year, in your words, with their head chopped off and fight hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't. I mean, you can't overreact. You've basically had a fantastic run. You still have the most important piece in Pat, and you've got. You've got a talented roster. Like you said, you're the champions of the Eastern Conference. Don't overreact to a really bad game.
Yeah.
Don't let a really bad game turn into a series of bad games. But yeah, and again, like they locked down Barkley, which I'm sure was the primary game plan. Defensively, they just didn't expect the offense to give them nothing.
Yeah.
Like nothing at all. So I thought it was a story of the game. I mean, Philadelphia, for their credit, I mean, the defensive line dominated. To me, it's hard to point anybody at the MVP other than the defensive line.
That's and Sweat came out and basically
said he thought he had it.
yeah, he thought he had it. Of course, it's a little in jest, but everything that's said in jest, it's a truth behind it as well.
Yeah.
And whether it's Sweat or somebody else, but I do think somebody from that defensive line should have been MVP, and you had a thing where it's just the whole line, just the defensive line.
Because
Super Bowl MVP.
You had 4 guys rushing that dominated the game.
Yeah.
Like that was it. 4 guys. You didn't need to blitz. You didn't need to do anything special. And those 4 guys were so consistently disruptive. They erased a running game. They harassed and sacked and created pressures and turnovers all over the place. I mean, they had the strip sack too.
Yeah. No, they completely dominated that game for sure. But I'm going to move on here. Let me see. I want to read these 2 comments from Champ. What he said here? I said pregame, if the Eagles were to win, it would be because Saquon Barkley, but he only had but he didn't. He didn't dominate.
Yeah,
the game.
didn't have
so
a
I
big
understand
game.
what you're saying.
Yeah.
And then he says completely opposite. Defense held Barkley, especially in the first half. Yeah, 100%. And I think that's everybody's thing going in. But one thing I did get right was I did go Saquon under. Because one thing I really believed in was on Hard Rock I went Saquon under because the Chiefs in this stretch has not allowed a 100-yard running back in the playoffs in this entire Mahomes era.
Yeah.
And that's and you can say, oh, but they didn't. And I had guys that was like, yeah, but he ain't faced Saquon. But yeah, but he faced Derrick Henry 3 times.
Right.
And I think Derrick Henry in his prime, with Tennessee in the first year with Baltimore is a better running back than Saquon. Like just running the football, more unstoppable, immovable force. And they held him under 100 yards 3 times. Like, and that wasn't just one lucky time. That means something. And other running backs as well. So I took the under. I had a good feeling they were going to do that. The secondary is the weaker spot in our unit. So in our defensive unit. So yeah. Now, that aside, bad game. Especially for us viewers, we want